Trustee Kessler, it's Christy Fitzpatrick. Just seeing if you were jumping on. No worries. Should we give you a few minutes? Okay. Okay, perfect. Okay.
Well, there we go. Welcome to the New College of Florida Board of Trustees meeting. It's October 3rd, 2023, and I would ask you all to please stand and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. We're going to call the meeting to order, and first I would like to start this meeting with a congratulations. Yesterday, New College was granted admission to the NAIA and Sun Conference, so go Mighty Banyans. Thank you. Ms. Fitzpatrick, may I ask you please to call the roll and establish a quorum and confirm public notice of the meeting?
Yes. Trustee Anderson?
Here.
Trustee Bauerlein?
Here.
Joe Jaco? Not here, but he may join us. Trustee Karp?
Here.
Trustee Keenan?
Here.
Trustee Kessler?
Here.
Trustee Mackey?
Here.
Trustee Reed?
Here.
Trustee Rufo?
Here.
Trustee Spalding?
Here.
Chair Jinks?
Here.
Vice Chair Cristaldi?
Here.
We have a quorum, and it was publicly noticed.
Thank you. Now is the time where we move into the public comment process of this meeting. Again, I ask you to please maintain proper decorum. The process for which we have public speaking at New College is that if you wanted to speak at this meeting, you must have registered at least 48 hours in advance of the meeting. We have a list of people who have signed to register for public comment. Do we know how many are here?
We actually only have six.
Six.
Out of the 13.
Okay. Each commenter will have 1 minute to speak, and you must speak towards the item that you identified when you registered to speak. So, Ms. Fitzpatrick, if you could proceed with calling the first on the list.
So first up, we have Kathleen Cody, Shannon Ingalls, and John O'Miller.
Okay, please, thank you. Please come to the podium, and you have the floor.
Can I begin? I don't think this is.
Pull the mic closer to you and see.
Can you hear me? I don't think so. Now? I'm gonna. Can
There
you
we
hear
go.
me now?
I think
Okay.
we can hear you now.
Kathleen Cody, Charter Class 1964. I'm part of the community who has supported this college for over 60 years. I look on in disbelief as the fabric of this institution has been shredded in 9 short months. Today, you have the responsibility to select the new president of New College. Will you choose the politically appointed interim president, Richard Corcoran, who has sown discord, distrust, and fear in students, faculty, and staff? Who posts armed police outside the bathrooms during the BOT meetings so he can meet secretly with his cronies? Who is cruel to the students he is charged with protecting? Who has done his best to create a divide among the students? Is this election anything other than a rubber stamp for Governor DeSantis and his plan to destroy our higher ed and to end any questioning of his repressive agenda? It is sad and should be embarrassing to you to watch you ignore any of the heartfelt public comments from dedicated supporters and donors to the college. Hail to Alt New College.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Hi, I'm Shannon Ingalls. I am an alum. I graduated in 2002. I'm also a BAFTA-nominated and Interactive Academy Awards-winning writer and studio founder. But I was most proud of being a New College alum. I'm not proud anymore. Trustee Spalding, I listened to your latest Hillsdale podcast where you complained about all the negative public comments at these meetings. You want us to stop speaking out? Stop the harm. Don't allow Corcoran to become president. And get that clown Rufo off the board. It's embarrassing. You wouldn't allow someone like Corcoran to be president of Hillsdale. He couldn't even get into New College. And he was kicked out of UF for having a 0.46 GPA by his own admission. I've never even met anyone with a GPA that low before. He couldn't get in class I've taught. I also can't believe you would allow a trustee of Hillsdale to go online and bully tuition-paying students and parents and make inappropriate comments about a student's breasts to hundreds of thousands of followers. That's a form of sexual harassment, by the way.
Thank you.
John O'Miller, NCF Freedom. You have Trustee Rufo's motion worded incorrectly in your draft minutes. You voted to revise the academic program without first hearing from the faculty, which is required by the collective bargaining agreement. You're crosswise with the Board of Governors. They have requirements that each institution adopt regulations on terminating programs. They have to be approved by the Board of Governors. New College has no such regulations. And if someone was aware at the last meeting that the Office of the Attorney General had an opinion stating that you should postpone formal action on controversial matters, they didn't speak up. So you screwed up. You made some mistakes. It's okay. Don't beat yourself up. The question is, have you learned anything? And can you go back and correct these? Because it's not too late to make this right. Thank you.
Next up, we have Rodrigo Diaz, Mike Sanderson, Ruth Follett.
I have 3 comments. Page 5 of the agenda provides a draft of the minutes of the August 10th board meeting. They state, Trustee Rufo made a motion to approve the directive to start the process to discontinue the Gender Studies program, beginning with the 2024 enrollees. This is false. Trustee Rufo never stated his motion in those words. Number 2, in an interview with the New College student newspaper, presidential candidate Tyler Fisher said he would commit to investing 20% of his compensation package back to student scholarships. President Corcoran, will you make the same commitment, sir? Number 3, I call on the board to join business, civic, and political leaders across Florida and pass a motion as a matter of new business today to recognize Hispanic Heritage Month at New College. Gracias.
Hi, I'm Mike Sanderson. I entered New College in 1999. First, about the land deal on the agenda, we've reached the point where someone is asking you to take their unusable alligator and snake-infested property off their hands sight unseen. But from the literal swamp to Richard Corcoran, about the NIA decision, congratulations. They told us in July that their code of ethics did not apply to their membership process. And yeah, that's what it took to get New College in. But the point on that, the NIA, the $50 million, Corcoran's gotten everything he wants, and it's still unforced error after unforced error in the headlines this week. Disgruntled VP of Communications, and tomorrow we're going to hear about people who know what a business plan is, think of the business plan. So you hire Corcoran after all this, you own this. This is not, you're not going to be able to blame other people. This is your doing. We'll see how things work out. Thank you.
If hypocrisy of this board were measured in decibels, it would be equal to the level next to the loudspeakers at a Rolling Stones concert as they play Sympathy for the Devil. Board members see Hillsdale College as the current model, conservative and Christian. Select a president who follows the 10 commandments. Thou shalt not bear false witness against thy neighbor. Corcoran consistently lies, distorts, and obscures. In a recorded interview, Corcoran said only 9 or 10 faculty decided to leave after the new regime took over. I researched it, the number's 20. In the same interview, when asked how many classes have been canceled this semester, he said 0. Another bald-faced lie. Corcoran is not trustworthy. You cannot rebuild without trust. Hire a real and trusted educator, not a morally corrupt, overpaid political hack, unless that's indeed what you want. Hypocrites.
That concludes our public commenters.
Okay, thank you. Moving on, we have consent agenda. The materials have been promulgated to the trustees of the board, and I would entertain a motion to approve the consent agenda.
I'll move to approve.
Thank you, Trustee Karp. Is there a second?
I actually have some items that
Okay, well, I need a second. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Thank you. Okay.
If there are items that a trustee would like to have removed, then recognize Trustee Reed for doing so.
So I would like to remove several items from the consent agenda. First, the minutes. Second, the E&G carry forward spending plan. Third, the New College Foundation budget. And C, the equity report. For the equity report.
So it's E&G and...
So those items are removed.
So those items will be removed.
And we'll take up a vote on the remaining items,
Yes.
because there was a motion and a second.
So taking those items off the consent agenda, do we have a vote on the motion for the items remaining?
All in favor?
All in favor?
Aye.
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 Aye. Any opposed? No? Okay. So now we'll take up the items that Trustee Reed asked to have removed from the consent agenda in the order in which they were addressed.
I hope we can be fairly quick with this. Shall I start with my question about the minutes?
Sure.
As several of the speakers pointed out, there is a discrepancy in the minutes, and I believe it's important that we clarify the appropriate language. Trustee Rufo moved to direct the president and staff to take the necessary and proper steps to terminate the gender studies program, beginning with 2024 enrollees. That, I believe, is the appropriate language and should, as listed at the top of the page, replace the language below that has a more convoluted sentence about beginning to begin, the process to begin. So I would like that change made.
Should be initiated.
Trustee Reed, were there any other comments on the minutes?
That is my one comment on the minutes. I don't know if other people have comments, but that was my one.
Madam Chair, if I
Yes,
might,
please.
can I just ask Trustee Rufo, is the sentence that she first read consistent with what your recollection is?
I believe that it is, and Mr. Galvano, perhaps you could provide us with some legal and technical guidance on the best step forward to execute this process of beginning to abolish gender studies, but to do so in a way that is consistent with any and all regulations.
Madam Chair.
Please.
Well, we're on the minutes right now, and I would just caution that the minutes are not, it's not a deposition transcript. It's supposed to capture the essence. So I have no issue with the recommended modifications from Trustee Reed, and if the chair and the board are good with it, I would take it up and
Okay, I'll
vote on
I
it.
believe the first language is what's actually said if you go back and listen to the recording.
I'll move approval of the minutes with the change that Trustee Reed articulated.
Is there a second?
I'll second that.
Thank you. Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
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 Okay. So, do you know what that's going to state or just going
No, we're good.
Shall I just continue?
Yes,
or-
please.
Okay,
Thank you,
so
Trustee Reed.
Thank you. And again, I'll be trying to go fairly quickly here. My second question is about the university carry-forward spending plans, which includes a $600,000 budget for athletics. And I don't believe that this board has actually had a chance to review that. Back in July, I had asked that there be a meeting of the Educational, Student, and External Affairs Committee to talk specifically about the athletic program. I was promised in July that that would happen before our August meeting. Then the chair of that committee, Trustee Bauerlein, decided that the meeting would happen later. We are now in October. That meeting has not occurred, and we do not have any sense of how this budget is going to be used. So until the BOT actually has a budget that explains how the athletic program is using this money, I don't believe we are exercising our proper fiduciary responsibility if we approve it sight unseen. I am also questioning whether or not some of this money is coming from the carry forward funds. And if the money is coming from carry forward funds, we need to have clarification that it will be used for one-time expenses, not for recurring expenses. So if it's about startup funds that the teams need, that's one thing, but it shouldn't be for recurring expenses. I believe we need more information if we are going to appropriately express our fiduciary responsibility.
So, Madam Chair, if I could get us in a proper posture, what we've done is removed it from the consent agenda. So we sort of went right into discussion with Trustee Reed. What you should do is entertain a motion at this time to approve that report, have a second, and then we can have further discussion. I think you have Mr. Kingsley here to comment on
And we
it.
have the motion.
And Mr. Galvano, it comes as a recommendation from the Finance and Administration Committee, so I think it only needs a second.
Okay. So,
And you're making that.
yeah.
As chair of the Finance and Administration Committee, maybe somebody else should make the second, since it comes from my committee.
I'll make the second.
Trustee Cart made the second. Okay.
Okay, now you're in discussion.
Right, now we're in discussion. So, yes. So we'll ask Chris Kinsley, please, to come to the podium and explain the numbers. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Can you hear me okay? Can you hear me? Do I need to not get as close as I can? Okay,
That's
I think that's better. So I will do my best to answer Trustee Reed's questions. Yes, this is indeed all the funds in the carry forward spending plan are from the carry forward account. Also, essentially, those are the dollars of state appropriations in the E&G category that remain unspent at June 30th, officially at July 1. And this is our spending plan for those dollars. So all the dollars, including the line item you questioned, the athletic startup funds, are coming from the reserves. So just based on the nature of those funds, those are one-time dollars. They only exist if the college, to the extent the college does not expend the dollars in any given fiscal year, those dollars are there. The legislature, previous to this upcoming year, restricted those dollars to be spent only for non-recurring purposes. The law was changed this year for all universities. They can now be spent for any purpose, recurring or non-recurring. But the source of the funds is non-recurring. It's only exist if the college has, excess unspent funds at the end of the year. In terms of the line item detail, the detail is the same as for the other items. I would submit, as far as the athletic startup funds, the athletics budget is still being developed. These funds would be very helpful, as I will attest as your CFO. Our programs in a startup year are really operating on what I would say a very frugal manner. We've met frequently with the coaches and Mr. Jimenez, our athletic director. This is our startup year. We want to support our teams, but we are just getting started. There's a lot of costs for equipment, uniforms, etc. Whether or not this is approved by the Board of Trustees today or the Board of Governors, our athletics programs will be fine. This will help us. It will just help make us able to be a little more, I won't even say less frugal, but maybe that's the word. We'll still be frugal, but just a little less frugal. How we'll deploy this depends on if this is approved. We are not counting on these dollars, but it would be ever so helpful to have those. So that's what I could say. It's not in the packet. That's just my impression as your CFO of the detail. We do not have a line item to say, well, what happens if we don't get this? Will we have to not have any, cut a program or something like that? Not at all. These will be supplemental to starting up the athletic program.
I want to thank you for that explanation, but I guess it actually raises more questions for me. Because if you're saying that we do not have a finalized budget for the athletic program, and two, that these dollars are not necessary immediately, then three, why are we allocating them until we get the budget? And wouldn't it make more sense to get the budget and then allocate the dollars versus putting the cart before the horse? And I do want to say, I was told by a student that the softball team won their game last week. So if we're going to be cheering for New College sports, let's hear it for the softball team.
If I may, Chair Jenks,
Yes.
I want to clarify. If I said that it's unnecessary, far from it. These funds are important. I'm saying we will not, if we don't get approval for these dollars, we will have to be even more on a shoestring. If later in the package is, and I think this is one of the items you asked to pull off of the consent as well, the New College Foundation budget.
Yep.
We are looking for $400,000 of support from our foundation, which will come from fundraising and sponsorships. We will be asking supporters of New College and our athletic program to take of their time and talent and treasure to support our program. It takes a lot of funds to have a successful athletic program and to sustain it. And, it is going to take work and resources for that fundraising. This can help get those seed monies, even to help pay for some of the upfront costs, related to athletics. I don't know how to say it any other way than we do not have a finalized budget, but we do have a budget. We are working, and it's very, very difficult to start a program in midstream. Nonetheless, I think the results bear out that it has helped strengthen our incoming class in terms of the numbers. And, credit to our scholar athletes for, putting a very credible sports program on the field in our very first year.
So you say that we have a budget, but I don't believe this board has seen the athletic program budget. This board is going to meet again, I believe, on October 20th. So I would actually move that we pull the athletic expenses from this report until such time as we get an actual budget, and when we meet again in 2 weeks would seem an appropriate time to approve it if we have the budget.
Madam Chair, I would strongly urge you guys not to do that. But when you get to the foundation budget, Trustee Reed, we put in the foundation budget, as we do in this budget, is we say $400,000 for sports. It's not broken down by the penny. It's not 6 softballs, 6 baseballs. It's not broken down. We do that on every line item. And when you get through the end of the budget cycle and you didn't spend $400,000, you spent $300,000, that becomes carry forward funds that we have for us to be able to spend again. But we do that with everything. Right now in budgets, we'd say, okay, how much for, we're going to allocate $20,000 for consultants. We're going to allocate $150,000 for campus celebrations. We don't know necessarily we're going to spend all that, but we put those allocations as we do the 600,000, as we do the 400,000.
So I understand how the principles of the budgeting works, but Mr. Kinsley, can you confirm whether the New College academic program has received its budget for the fiscal year that started in July?
We can't do that until you guys approve these budgets. We can't start spending the money out of the foundation for our division chairs, for our academics, for those things until you guys approve the budget. As soon as you approve the budget today, those funds are able to be released. And as I've said over and over, the amounts that are going to be released will be more than last year. The goal on every single front is to do more, spend more, give people more raises than last year. And that will be consistent. And you can be sure to call me on the carpet if it's that accurate.
So there's been a motion and a second to approve the University E&G Carry Forward Spending Plan fiscal year 2023-2024. I'd like to take a vote on that, please. So all those in favor?
Aye.
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 Aye. Any opposed?
Nay.
Okay. Motion passes. There was one other item, Trustee Reed, you had the
Two
new...
more.
Two
There's
more.
actually two items, but the second one is about the foundation budget. And
Well, what was the one between, let's do them in...
Equity was
foundation.
last.
oh,
The equity was
okay.
last. So it amounts to the same thing, that there's $400,000 for an athletics budget when we have not seen a budget for a program in its initial year. And $1 million is a lot of money to be putting out in a time when there is a fair amount of budget uncertainty on campus. So given that our division chairs do not have the confidence that they're going to have the budgets necessary to run the searches for academic positions that they need to run this year, I'm concerned about having budgets with large amounts that are unaccounted for approved at this point. So that's that.
Madam Chair, you need to call for a second and put us in a posture to discuss it.
Correct. It comes as a recommendation from the Finance and Administration Committee.
Correct.
So someone needs to second the...
I second it.
Okay.
Okay. If any further discussion?
Any
If
further
not, call the
discussion?
vote.
We'll call the vote.
What I would like to say is that I think what Trustee Reed is saying, something that I have said in many meetings prior, is that I don't think the way we are presented budgets is adequate for us to make accurate decisions. I've sent and shared, I think, with both of you what other universities do for budgets, and we still have not done that. It's been a couple months. So I think this hopefully is the last call for us to change how we present budgets. So maybe that's what we can get out of this discussion.
I agree, and we've had a meeting with Trustee Keenan. I know CFO Kinsley. We've hired a new deputy, and Alice Heflin. I'm sorry, Alice, I don't know your maiden name, your married name. I just knew her from her maiden name. We've also moved another person over there. We've had those meetings, and I think we're going through, whether it's the FGCU, the ones that Trustee Keenan, but if we could reassure Trustee Keenan that those budgets will be in more greater detail, CFO Kinsley, you have my promise that's the case. And
Yes, I want to thank President Corcoran. I mean, I do now have Alice Heflin-Moriak with years of experience, most recently coming as the CFO from Department of Economic Opportunity, but I, too, have known her for many years. She has a wealth of experience in budget and finance, as well as our own Dr. Justin Miller. He's been our Director of Office of Research, now I'm going to forget, Research Program Services. He's now serving as interim in that role, but permanent in the budget director. I think both of those individuals would attest that it is more work than any single person can handle, much less, me as CFO. Now having two full-time staff to dedicate themselves, we're making some headway, and we will. I will not commit to having a better report by the 20th, but you will see better budgetary reports. I think very much, we have in the past produced very good budget reports for this board. I feel it has simply been a matter of staffing. It can't be done by a single person. As far as, we've already moved past. I will stop there.
We will get you the detail.
Thank you.
And I will tell you it will be 60 days or less.
Thank you. So we've had a motion, it's seconded. Can I take a vote, please, on the approval of the New College Foundation fiscal year 23-24 budget?
Aye.
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 Aye. Any opposed?
Nay.
Okay,
Madam
budget
Chair, if I
passes.
might just add one other thing. As Mr. Kinsley, as chair of the Finance and Administration Committee, perhaps we could tack on 30 minutes at the front end of those meetings where budgets are coming for a workshop session. And perhaps we can invite any board members who would like to attend and get those notices out in accordance with our notice process, so that we have a little more time, because I also feel like when we get into these meetings and we don't have a lot of time, there's not opportunity for folks to dig into information that they would like. So maybe we could start that process at the committee level, and I'm happy to take up that responsibility if you all will schedule a little bit of time.
It would be a pleasure to do that. We will work with the president to schedule that additional time in the next, committee meeting.
Thank you, Trustee Cristaldi. Before we have discussion, then, can I have a motion to approve, and then we'll have a discussion, the 2023 New College Equity Report?
So moved.
Thank you, Trustee Carp. A second?
Second.
Okay. Now, you wanted to discuss that?
Well, for this, I have a question. There's a page, it's not numbered, but it has a chart that says university male and female undergraduate enrollment percentages and athletic participation. And it indicates that we have no male students and no female students. I'm wondering if we can correct that, please?
We can have our Vice President of Legal Affairs, David Brickhouse.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Brickhouse. If you can answer.
Madam
that
Chair, Trustee Keenan, Trustee Reed, yes, that's because this is a report from the last academic year. We did not have intercollegiate sports, so therefore there is no
I
data
understand
to
that, but
report.
in the first block, it's actually total students. There's 2 blocks that are participating in athletics, and those are 0, and I don't actually think they should be, but the 2 that are total students should not be 0 because we have students. It's, yeah.
Trustee Reed, which page in the report again? I'm sorry.
I'm not
Nope.
sure because my copy does not have page numbers on it.
34.
I have 34.
You have 34?
Is that the correct one?
I'd be fine, Madam Chair, if you just wanted to approve it subject to technical modifications.
And-
The board's fine with that.
There's one other slight change. On the following page, when they're talking about the equity plan, it says that we had no athletics other than intramurals, and that's actually not correct. We had several teams that competed with other colleges and in communities. So whether we're talking about the rowing team in particular, or the student who completed in the swimming nationals, we did have students competing in athletics, and it's not fair to characterize all the student-led sports on campus. They're clubs, but they're not intramurals.
There's a differentiation for the two, and we picked it up from the previous equity report filed by the previous administration.
Okay, I wasn't on the board then. So I think it's an error that should be fixed.
If you have a motion and a second, and generally you can defer to our general counsel, Bill Galvano, but you're allowed to make technical scrivener's errors corrections.
That is correct.
Okay, and
So,
that's that.
Sure.
based on that, do we
Call the vote.
call a vote, please?
Sure.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Sorry.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Okay, thank you. On to the Manatee County donation 9-acre parcel to New College of Florida. I would like to turn the mic over to Bill Galvano, General Counsel, and have him explain this next agenda item.
Yes, thank you, Madam Chair. On October the 10th, the Manatee County Commission is taking up a resolution to enter into a donation agreement with the New College of Florida for 9 acres. These are the 9 acres north of the boat basin, which is north of the Crosley. That property was originally a 16-acre parcel. The county has utilized and treasures, frankly, the Crosley parcel to the south, but feels like there could be better utilization for the property to the north, and is considering and willing to make a donation of that property to the New College of Florida. It is zoned public development, public interest, very unique zoning, plan development public interest, and allows a multitude of uses from veterinary, agriculture, office, medical, retail, housing, even dormitories are listed in the description. What this vote would mean for this Board of Trustees is that you would simply be authorizing the president to engage in discussion with, and it will be the county attorney post their vote, which I suspect will be a positive, to enter into a donation agreement. You're not accepting the property at this point, nor are they actually transferring the property on October 10th, because an agreement has to take place. As part of that agreement, we would have a diligence period, inspection period, and there would be exhibits that would come to it, and then ultimately that would come back to this board for review and final decision. So that's what the action is, and it is a positive action in my opinion, which my opinion doesn't count up here, but
It does.
but I think it's a good necessary step to at least get into those negotiations so this board has the opportunity to act later on what amounts to a multi-million-dollar parcel of property on the water.
So before we have any discussion, I'll entertain a motion to authorize New College of Florida president to secure a donation agreement with Manatee County for a 9-acre parcel of land.
I'll make that motion.
Okay. Thank you, Trustee Carpin. Trustee Kessler, is there a second? Okay. Thank you, Trustee Anderson. Any discussion? Questions?
Sounds spectacular. It sounds like a great opportunity for the college and for the students and just for higher education here in this area.
Thank you. Thank you for all your work getting that done.
I just have a question. As I understood it, this parcel of land was supposed to be given to USF, and they have turned it down. Do you know what happened and why?
Yes, I do. In 2020, a donation agreement was entered into with USF with a contingency on agreeing on ultimate compatible use. And under that contract, with the inspection period, there was like 90 days, another 6 months for them to enter into that agreement, or the county could terminate it. It's 3 years later, they were not entered into it, so the county in July decided, let's go a different direction. And so on the 25th of July, they voted to terminate further discussions with them.
So USF just basically dropped the ball? Or did they find the land not suitable for their purposes? Because it's bordered in on two sides by USF.
Yeah, I'm not going to comment on whether they dropped the ball or not, but suffice it to say, I would recommend that we move forward and have the discussions.
Any other discussion? Okay, there's been a motion and a second, and so can we have a vote, please, on authorizing the president to secure the donation agreement? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? No? Okay, motion carries. Okay, folks, on the Zoom, don't go anywhere. Everybody, we're just going to take a 5-minute break, and then we'll reconvene. I have 4:39, so we'll call it, call it 2:40, so back at 2:45. Thank you.
Sit down, come to order.
Hi, coffee break's over.
My mother-in-law went under.
Ready?
Sorry.
Looks like Joe is.
We're going to address that. Okay. We need,
We lose that. Hopefully they said their case.
thank you everyone for coming back and taking your seats. We are now going to take up the selection of our new presidential candidate. I first would like to profoundly express my appreciation to the Presidential Search Committee that conducted this search. We may ask for a few words from the chair of that committee, but right now we would like to thank Board of Governor Levine for his participation in that process, and he's on the Zoom meeting with us today, and I would ask him to please say a few words for us. Thank you.
Hey, thank you, Madam Chair. Can you hear me okay?
Yes, sir.
Well, first of all, I wish I could be there with you today in person. Unfortunately, something came up yesterday that required my presence here. But I wanted to first just say a few words. Number one, I want to thank Interim President Corcoran, who stepped in at what was obviously a very tumultuous and difficult time. And whatever decisions you make today with respect to who is your president going forward, I think we all owe him a debt of gratitude. And I also want to say, having sat through the process, just to be clear, I'm but one member of the search committee. I am on the Board of Governors, but my role here was just to serve as a member along with my other colleagues on the search committee. And I think you did a tremendous job in your appointments. It was a very well-constructed committee. The discourse was respectful. They didn't always agree on everything, but they talked through everything in a respectful way. Everything was transparent. There were no secret votes. It was a very well and thoughtfully constructed process where I think there's not a single person on that search committee who would disagree with what I'm saying. And when you finish a process and the faculty member, the student, and the member of the Board of Governors all are praising the process, you've done something pretty special. So I think that the chair of the search committee is to be commended for his very capable management of that process. I also want to thank former president and your counsel, Bill Galvano. The most important person in that process outside the members themselves is the general counsel, because you're the counsel to the committee, and managing the law, the Board of Governors regulations, and your own regulations is not an easy task. And so I appreciate the counsel that Bill provided to the committee along the way. And also I appreciate the fact that Bill availed himself of communicating with me to make sure that along the way, if there were questions, we could run those questions up the flagpole to the general counsel of the Board of Governors. I'll close by saying I think New College of Florida is blessed. It attracted, and I'm sure you'll hear this from the chair, there were numerous extremely qualified candidates, and I was impressed with the depth, the breadth, and the quality of the people that you attracted, and certainly the three or the finalists that came to the board for interviews and to the campus community. I think most people would probably agree that those were very, very high caliber people, and that speaks well of the articulated vision of New College and the governance of New College. I just want to say thank you for giving me the opportunity to participate in your process. I look forward to whatever decision you make, certainly taking that decision and reporting that to the Board of Governors and getting New College on path for its future, which I think is extremely bright, and we look forward to doing what we can to support you. So thank you for the opportunity to say a few words, and good luck with your deliberations.
Thank you, Governor Levine. Trustee Spalding, just briefly, if you could just, I know we've had you say this before, but just describe the process that the committee went through to get us to where we are today.
Thank you, Chair Jason. Trying to apologize for not joking. I'm under the weather, so I couldn't get down there. Very much wanted to do so. And I thank Governor Levine's comments. Thank you for those. I think it was an excellent process. I was very happy with how it all went throughout. As you know, we got, someone can correct me on the actual numbers, something in the order of 60-some candidates, which we culled down by going through them. The committee met and all participated, all voted, all on the record to narrow that down to these three. I have to say it was kind of hard to get it down to these three. We have some very qualified candidates, and we picked the three we think are most qualified. All of them are highly qualified to be president of New College, and I'm very proud of that. And I think we asked them very extensive and detailed questions in our time with them about the materials approved by the board in the search document, about the things needed right now for New College. And I think these are three candidates that present answers to those questions. They're not all the same, but I think this creates a great setup for the conversation and the choice now to be made by the board. I hope everyone has watched those interviews from the search committee, in addition to the forums, both with faculty and students, which I have watched all of them. And I think we're in a good position to make a choice, an excellent choice for the future of the college. So I think the process went extremely well and teased up very nicely for board consideration.
Thank you, Trustee Spalding. Since our last meeting, we held on-campus forums with the three candidates. Again, those forums were recorded. Trustees received recordings from the visits and also received survey results where 610 respondents provided their insights regarding the position. So understand we'll have discussion, but I would like to have a motion to select by roll call vote of the trustees the final candidates with whom to negotiate an employment contract for president of New College of Florida. What this means is after discussion on the motion, we will call the roll and each trustee will say the name of the one candidate that they choose. The candidate getting the majority of the votes will be the final candidate. Will someone make that motion?
I'll make that motion.
Thank you, Trustee Cristaldi. May I have a second, please?
Second.
Thank you. Okay.
I have a question.
We're now prepared for discussion. Yes.
Just about the motion. Are you saying there's three candidates? Mm-hmm. Are we saying we're going to vote until someone has a majority, or just whoever has the plurality in the first round?
Majority vote.
Okay, so that if it were divided and no one had a majority, we would have to eliminate the lowest one and revote.
Correct.
Okay.
Okay, so
Discussion.
we will entertain discussion at this point.
I'm happy to go over the student input that I shared with everyone. If that's quickly, I can go over it.
Yeah, I was made aware of it
She's fine.
but right before the meeting, but yes.
Yeah,
Trustee
okay.
Keenan,
That's
you have the floor.
I could go
Yes.
over it. All right. So we compiled this from surveys from open office hours with the students, and so I'll quickly go over everything. First, I wanted to make comments. There was a lot of concerns about the presidential search process, mainly that the student who was chosen to be a part of it was not an elected student or a student leader in any capacity. And then the fact that there was only one opportunity per candidate for the students to interview them, and it was only 45 minutes and at 9 a.m., which was not even nearly enough time for the students to get to know any of the candidates. And as you can imagine, maybe 5 students showed up to the 9 a.m. meeting, counting myself. And so in terms of the candidates, as you can see from the first page, it was I had everyone rank their candidates. Clear first was Dr. Fisher, the students who said that one of the biggest things that they noticed is that he took the time to come speak with the students in the Hamilton Center. They thought his Oxford education would allow him to understand the New College system very well, and they also liked that he would be a good person to bring back trust amongst the students, faculty, and administration because he had experience in all 3 capacities at a Florida university. Clearly next was Dr. Gervasi, who his management experience was most notable. There was still some lack of clarity with the students about what exactly his vision was, but they did make it clear that they preferred him over Mr. Corcoran. And finally, for Mr. Corcoran, the top comment was that despite being interim president, he had not come to speak to the students to open himself up for conversation about the presidential search his entire time as interim president, yet Dr. Fisher did. I don't think there is any excuse for that. And then we had a lot of concerns about communication, lack of trust, the housing situation, which I would describe, and I think we would all describe who experienced it as chaotic, was unacceptable. And I think my final comment on Mr. Corcoran is that I see that there is value in having someone who has political connections, but that is only one part of what goes into being president. And it is very clear from the students that he was ranked last. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other comments about candidates?
I was just going to say thank you to Trustee Keenan for your leadership in compiling the information as usual. You shine as a trustee and as a student here, so thank you for your time on it.
Trustee Reed.
I'm wondering if we can hear from the other members of the Board of Trustees about their perceptions of the candidates. Specifically, the job ad for president indicated that we needed to see someone with academic accomplishments, someone with demonstrated leadership experience, and someone who would be good about collaborating with stakeholders. So I'd be interested in hearing from the people at this table and those on Zoom about how they perceive the three different candidates in terms of those qualities. I think it would be very helpful for us to hear that before we decide to vote.
I'd just say that, congratulations to the search committee, because after seeing the interviews that were presented online with both the faculty and students, and then also reading through the documentation and being kept up to date on what's been going on with the search committee, I would say all three candidates that the search committee has proposed to the Board of Trustees are excellent, without a doubt. There should be conversation and there should be dialogue amongst the three of them because all three are very qualified. Specifically, if you're asking how I'd vote, I would vote for our current interim president. I think he's done a great job getting us where we are today. I know things are not perfect where we are, and I know we have a lot of work going forward, but as a trustee prior to this year beginning, I would say that unfortunately we had some challenges and headwinds facing this school and the campus prior. And for the first time now, I'd say that there's a lot of positivity and a lot of optimism that I'm seeing around campus and hearing from students and hearing from people. And there's some things that are going on now. I hear this from the students as far as the housing, and I understand it's chaotic. I get that. And, if I were a student here, I'd probably say the same thing. But yet, look at the challenges that have had to be faced. Some of these dorms have unfortunately fallen into disarray and needed extensive repair probably for quite some time now. I know that as trustees, we went to the legislature and the Board of Governors in the past looking for funding, and unfortunately we didn't get it up till now when interim President Corcoran was able to go, and with his team, they've achieved tremendous funding. And that's a positive, maybe not to the students right today, it should be, but to the student going forward in the future of this institution. We need dorms and we need residence halls that are first class. And unfortunately, what we've had, the past couple of years, they were beautiful years ago. And I hear from the alumni from years ago how wonderful things were, and even from the past couple of years, things have definitely been good. But looking at the buildings and the amount of infrastructure that's going to take place and that is taking place, it's definitely caused some chaoticness. I get that. But I would say that the administration has worked very, very hard to try to make it as seamless and as easy as possible between the hotels and the busing. And my take is the administration cares a lot about the students who are here and looking to make it as seamless and just pleasant as possible. So those are my thoughts on where we are right now.
Thank you, Trustee Carp.
I'd like to add a thought, since you asked Commissioner Reed on the candidate that I know personally. So I was the governor's general counsel during COVID, which was an extremely stressful time, a situation we hadn't really faced before, and trying to navigate that for the betterment of Florida. And I had an opportunity to review and, to be honest, at times to scrutinize Commissioner Corcoran's work at the Department of Education at the time. And in a very, very difficult situation, you guys are all familiar with in terms of what's best for public schools, when they should open, how they should open. I have to say, I thought he did a tremendous job in dealing with 67 different district school board constituents that are varied across the state. He did a faithful job in implementing law, both from a federal regs perspective as well as new statutes that were being passed by the legislature. And every one of my interactions with him, he did that job as hardworking as you could ask, but also with a good degree of humility. Someone who was always open to new ideas, always approachable, and always determined to get it right, even if that didn't happen on the first time. So that is my personal experience with Richard Corcoran.
Thank you, Trustee. Do we have anybody else on Zoom? Is there Thank you.
Madam Chair, if I can make a couple of comments. I just took a moment to look up the search criteria, which I encourage everyone to, if they haven't looked at it again, refresh themselves. But what we wanted to search there were for a distinguished scholar or leader dedicated to the advancement of academic scholarship, a PhD or advanced terminal degree, or significant executive experience that would command respect and complete competence is required. And when you go through and read this, and I was looking to refresh my memory again, it makes it very clear what is going on here, and I don't mean that in some clever sense. I just want to remind us of the situation in which we're in. When we came into a majority on this board, for all intents and purposes, the wise thing would be to close the school down. It was spiraling out of control at $100 million in deferred maintenance. Every quantifiable number was not in good shape, and yet, from the very beginning, and I was very strong in this matter, we saw the great possibility of restoring the glory of this school based on its original mission. Which is to say the search here is not under a normal situation. I think we have three highly qualified candidates. I actually like all three of them. I think they would all be an excellent president of a college, especially a liberal arts college, especially a liberal arts college like New College. But this is not a situation we might find ourselves in making a comfortable decision, all things being equal. This school is in the process of recovery. The amount of focus and leadership that requires in a broad scale, well beyond the immediate things we might think about when we're merely changing presidents along the way and in a comfortable position, is not our luxury. The situation, I think, is turned. I think the last what is it, 9 months now, have seen an excellent move to try to go in that direction. But I think the three candidates here really present a choice of directional change. Are we going to continue this process whereby we are making the moves necessary, we are finding the funds necessary, we are reestablishing the programs necessary, we are redirecting, working with the faculty and others, the curriculum to restore it to its liberal arts mission? Are we going to continue all those things? And if we are, in my opinion, the qualifications described in that position criteria, which talk about the great and fabulous opportunity faced here, and what we required to do that, call for somebody who is qualified to take us in that direction. And I think of those three candidates, again, I would reiterate, when we sent them up here, we wanted to be in a position where I am in a position, right? Vote for any of those three are qualified. But I think there is one that has the types of things that criteria is looking for in terms of the mission, restoring the mission, and what this board understands as its fiduciary interest in advancing that mission in the situation that we find ourselves in today. So that's how I would read those criteria if we're looking at candidates. And I will support the interim president. I think he's done an excellent job thus far. And I think by virtue of everything we've seen about his description about what he wants to do, how he understands the future, what he wants to build, getting more property, building new dorms, all those things, is a large vision. That is really the only vision that's going to, in the long run, bring this college back where it ought to be, focused on its mission and growing and becoming really the crown jewel in the Florida system. And I think that's the directional decision this board ought to make today.
Thank you, Trustee Spalding. Do we have any other trustees that want to? Yes, Trustee Anderson? I just want to say I agree with most, if not everything, that Trustee Spalding just said. My biggest concern with Dr. Fisher, and this came out during the interview that the board had with him, it was the question that I asked him was, it just strikes me that he's jumping from a college professorship to university president without having any leadership or management or fundraising experience in between. I think the answer he gave to my question was that he had run the study abroad program, and he hasn't been department chair, he hasn't been dean, hasn't been provost. But I think it's Trustee Keenan. I'm very grateful for the survey that the students did. Although I guess I would have one question of is this a representative sample, or is this just like the 90-some people who answered? But I think it's instructive that the students really liked him, and I'm inclined to support the interim president, but then to encourage him to find a way of hiring Dr. Fisher here in some other capacity. I mean, because it just strikes me like whether it's dean or VP or provost, something in between, he's going to make a great university president. I don't think the time is now for him, but since the students seem so fond of him, I'm sure there's a role for him, and it just strikes me that could be a way of trying to find a spot for both. Thank you, Trustee Anderson. Trustee Bauerlein?
I would feel very good about the appointment of any of these three people. I thought Dr. Gervasi's interview, his first interview with the committee, he inspired in me full confidence in both his executive power and his academic credentials, his record, and his capacity, his leadership capacity. Dr. Fisher, to me, is really an ideal professor and academic leader in an honors college. He does have, I believe, the humanistic vision, the liberal arts and sciences vision to lead a university. The question about interim President Corcoran would be the academic record on this. And in my conversations with him and gathering discussions of curriculum and of the traditions that go into a good liberal arts education, he inspires the confidence that he does have the vision. And the reason that I would lean toward
President Corcoran, interim President Corcoran, is because of the special circumstances here of Honors College, the external issues, the political issues, the contacts in Tallahassee. And so my choice would be interim President Corcoran, with an understanding that maybe a year from now, 2 years from now, a different profile might be a better selection as president. Thank you, Trustee Bauerlein. Are there any other trustees who wish to come? Yes, Trustee Rufo? Thank you.
Yes, I would like to echo the comments of my colleagues, and I would like to remind all of us that New College is still in a situation of crisis. Was on the verge of being shut down by legislators. We've engaged in this ambitious and very difficult and challenging process of reform, renewal, reinvigorating the institution. And while I think that all three candidates are certainly qualified, under normal circumstances, all three would be great potential leaders of a small liberal arts college. We are in a time that requires a specific type of character. And ultimately, I think that's why I'm supporting Richard Corcoran. He has demonstrated the unique kind of character that we need. The problem at New College, which is really the problem at so many of our universities, is that there is an ethos of go along to get along, not rocking the boat, not disturbing the status quo, and conforming to any of the ideological pressures from within and also from without. That's why we see a kind of heterogeneous nature of the universities disappearing. We have a homogeneous higher education system, and at New College we're trying to break out of that and do something radically different. And I think, as I see it, our primary and our core mission really is to reestablish public authority over the public university system, which has broken the social contract with the public, really deviated from that core mission. And this requires a character that has strength, that is willing to make difficult decisions, that is willing to radically shake up an institution in order to revitalize this. And I think that Richard Corcoran has demonstrated that over and over and over. In extremely challenging circumstances, he's risen above them. He's earned my confidence. I think he's earned the confidence of my colleagues. And for that reason, I'll be supporting him as the permanent president of New College of Florida.
Thank you, Trustee Rufo. Trustee, there you are. Did you want to speak? Thank you. Kessler.
Do I have the floor?
Yes, Trustee Kessler. I keep seeing your green box light up, so it's okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Well, you may have read recently about the emergencies at West Virginia University, where the flagship university of the state of West Virginia is $45 million in debt, is coping or trying to cope with that and other fiscal emergencies by cutting, and they're firing over 100 members of the faculty, mostly tenured faculty. They are cutting almost all language programs. It's hard to imagine a liberal arts university, an R1 research university that wouldn't be teaching German or French or Chinese, but there's going to be one in West Virginia. And in a way, West Virginia is illustrative of the coming problems in higher education as a whole. The number of students is falling, the number of 18-year-olds, potential students is falling in the country at large. Courses are taught, but very few students are in them. There is a kind of rolling crisis in higher education that goes beyond even the crisis here at New College. But we're grappling with our crisis at New College in a much more effective and statesmanlike way, thanks to interim President Corcoran, and I'm happy to support him as the new permanent president of New College.
his two competitors, I think, were very interesting. They faded, in my view, as the competition continued. They seem to me to lack a sense of the crisis New College and the university at large, you might say, in America is in or approaching, and they lacked a certain kind of energy and vision that the job, particularly here at New College, demands. I do think that Mr. Corcoran will need a strong academic provost or academic advisor as he gets into his permanent role as president in order to grapple with the academic side of the college's problems. But that is a problem which I think is manageable. The kind of character and vision that we need in the person who is actually leading the college, however, who is the executive of the college, that's a very rare combination of qualities, and I think Mr. Corcoran has demonstrated them very well in his short time already as interim president. And so I'm a very happy vote in favor of Mr. Corcoran continuing as the permanent president. Thank you.
Thank you, Trustee Kessler. Are there any other trustees who wish to comment before we do a roll call vote? Trustee Reed?
I would like to speak. If
Thank
no
you.
one else does, I don't want to jump ahead. So first, I've been interested to hear the comments. I wish people had actually addressed the question that I'd asked, which was to speak specifically to the characteristics of the different candidates. I want to report first off, as the faculty representative on this committee, the great concern I heard from my colleagues on the faculty about the candidates. And I'm going to speak a little bit more specifically about the problems with our opportunities to interact with and get to know the candidates. But I feel it's important, given the conversations we've been having now, to recognize the strengths and weaknesses of Richard Corcoran as a candidate. Clearly, his strengths lie in his political connections, which are not negligible and which have resulted in bringing money to campus. But he has failed to build campus consensus over these past months. And many issues, including the firing of his own communications VP yesterday, the BOG scheduling of a meeting for Wednesday to discuss the shortcomings of the business plan that he was asked to submit in August because of the financial problems on the campus, and again, the fact that our divisions do not have a budget this far into the academic year. All of these things raise questions about his leadership. But what I really need to address at the moment is the question of process. Specifically, members of the BOT had just one brief opportunity to meet with the candidates on August 10th, and only about half of the board was able to do so. Trustees Spalding, Bauerlein, Keenan, Chair Jenks, and myself were in person, and there were a couple of other trustees on Zoom. When the candidates were invited to campus, 2 brief fora were held, only 2, 45 minutes long, a session with students followed by a session for faculty and staff. These were initially announced the week of August 20th and originally scheduled for the week of August 28th, but they had to be postponed due to the hurricane. On August 31st, I sent an email to the 2 representatives of the presidential search asking that when the events were rescheduled, that they be reconfigured so as to allow for greater participation from the campus. Since the fora were scheduled between 9 and 11 in the morning when classes were held, many faculty and students were unable to attend. And Trustee Keenan mentioned that there were 5 people at one of the fora, and I will say for one of the ones I zoomed in on, I was apparently the only person zooming in to a room that had under 10 people in it. So at the time, on the 31st, I shared a schedule from the campus visits for the previous presidential search when there were a total of 5 different events, open meetings and formal presentations made by each of the candidates, so that faculty, students, and staff could not just hear from, but also interact with the different candidates. There were additionally other closed meetings scheduled, including with the division chairs and a dinner with the members of the BOT. Note that there were 5 sessions, not just 2. I sent my message to the presidential search email, to the new college provost, to David Harvey, who was the faculty representative on the chair and on the search committee, and to Christy Fitzpatrick, who is the liaison for the BOT. Only Dr. Harvey replied, suggesting that an additional lunchtime meeting might be a good idea, and expressing his general support for expanded opportunities for the campus to get to know the candidates. On September 5th, they sent a second email, this time from me as a trustee, and also from the other faculty chairs, Drs. Portugal and McDonald. Again, requesting that there be additional meeting times scheduled so that more campus members could attend and weigh, and that there could be opportunities for all of us to meet the candidates. In our message, we stressed the importance of community engagement and transparency. This time I sent the message to the previous recipients and also to Trustee Spalding, chair of the search committee. I received no reply. I sent another message on September 11th, this time adding the new college president's office and staff who'd been involved in board communications, and again, no reply. Chair Jenks, I'm going to ask that my 3 emails about the presidential search be included in the record and for the minutes of this meeting. I will provide electronic copies to Ms. Fitzpatrick if that is appropriate. Frankly, it is not acceptable that messages from a trustee about an issue so important be ignored. But more importantly, it is not acceptable, and it is far outside of the norm, that the campus had such limited opportunity to hear from the candidates, and that the fora were structured in such a way that there was no opportunity for actual interactions between the community and the candidates. Only Dean of Students David Rancourt was allowed to ask questions during the session. People could submit questions in advance, but he was the only one who asked questions, and he cautioned people in attendance not to react or make any comments. To be clear, telling the candidates that they could go have lunch in the student cafeteria is not a productive way of facilitating conversations or showing appropriate hospitality to a job candidate. Bottom line, this is not how a successful search is structured. Whether you're hiring for a part-time job, or whether you're hiring a faculty member, or whether you're searching for an executive, you always ensure that there are ample opportunities for the candidate to meet with and interact with different constituencies, including over meals. It matters because if you want to have someone be successful in their job, they need to have a good sense of the organization they are joining, and they need the opportunity to establish a basis for communication and trust. In this moment, New College needs a leader, someone with the experience and the vision to steer us towards a future that aligns with the aspirations of our founding 60 years ago. In the past 12 days, I've heard from a number of faculty members who shared with me their concerns about the process. They did not have an adequate opportunity to assess the candidates, to determine which, if any, were qualified to lead New College at this important juncture. I know that the students, too, wrote to the administration to express their dissatisfaction with the process. I suggest that it is actually premature for us to move on a vote on any candidate at this point. Therefore, I move that we delay any further vote on the presidential candidates. I move that this board convene a committee to review the process and decide whether additional discussions and presentations should be held with the 3 candidates so that the campus can hear from and interact with them, or whether the search ought to be reopened.
I second that.
There's a motion. There's a motion pending. That motion is out of order.
Your motion's out of order. There's a
I-
motion pending. Your motion is out of order. Are there any other trustees who have any comments who have not spoken yet about the candidates?
I have a point of order. If that is made an amendment, could it go? Would that be in order? I have previously in meetings made amendments to motions to have them delayed.
I'm thinking about the substance of that. We have a motion to have a roll call vote on the final candidate.
Mm-hmm.
And so the motion that Trustee Reed made, if you can restate it, I'll listen carefully to it, but I thought it was a dual subject and really, I don't know how it can become an amendment to this one, but Madam Chair, you're welcome to take it up and see if it's supported or not, and if not, then we move to the underlying
perhaps I
question.
could rephrase, and I'll appreciate any guidance on this. Would it be appropriate for me to offer a motion that we delay the vote at this point until such time as this committee, this Board of Trustees, can reconsider the search process?
You can't offer a motion at this time. If you're offering, and Trustee Keenan wanted to offer an amendment, so articulate what the amendment would be.
I think the same thing, but just as an amendment.
So I would like to make an amendment to the motion that is currently on the floor, such that we delay the vote on this matter until such time as this committee can reconsider the validity of the search process.
And do you have a date? Because we have a motion to make a decision right now, and so you're saying, or I'm moving to delay.
I would move to delay this until August, or until October 20th, until our next meeting, which I believe will be scheduled for October 20th.
I think proper motion to get at what you're trying to accomplish would be a motion to table.
So then I would make a motion to table this vote.
And are you seconding?
I do second that,
Okay,
yes.
then you can call a voice vote, and if it passes, it passes.
I
If
also-
not, we're back on the main question.
Okay, so.
Discussion?
Pardon me?
Will we be able to do discussion
No.
on this?
No, it's non-debatable.
Okay.
So, does anybody here or on the Zoom, yeah, let's call it.
Seconded.
Yeah, so.
All in favor?
So all in favor of Trustee Reed's motion, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed?
Nay.
Nay. Thank you. Okay, so if there's no other further discussion, Trustee Jaycoat, was that? Oh, okay. Thank you. So at this point, the motion that was on the table is on the table, and we're going to take as we said before, a roll call poll vote on the president for the New College of Florida.
Trustee Anderson,
I vote for Mr. Corcoran.
Trustee Bauerlein,
Mr. Corcoran.
Trustee Jaco,
Mr. Corcoran?
Trustee Karp,
Richard Corcoran?
Trustee Keenan,
Dr. Fisher?
Trustee Kessler,
He's on mute.
you're on mute. Trustee Kessler,
Mr. Corcoran, please.
Trustee Mackey,
Richard Corcoran.
Trustee Reed,
Dr. Gervasi.
Trustee Rufo,
Mr. Corcoran.
Trustee Spalding,
Mr. Corcoran?
Chair Jinks,
Richard Corcoran.
Vice Chair Cristaldi.
Richard Corcoran.
Richard Corcoran has a majority.
So Richard Corcoran will be the new president of New College of Florida, moving from interim to.
If I can clarify, the motion is we've chosen him as a final candidate to engage in negotiations with the board or the board's designee to come together with an employment contract that comes back to this board.
Okay, so I would designate then as chair of this board, Vice Chair Ron Cristaldi to negotiate the employment contract with Richard Corcoran pursuant to the Board of Governors Regulation 1.002, parens 1, parens B. So I don't need a vote.
As long as Mr. Galvano is able to assist with that, I would accept the responsibility, I guess, to take the lead on that. Is that what's being asked?
What she's
Yes, I'm designating you to do that.
And Madam Chair, if I may,
Yeah.
in the way it's set out in the regs, the actual BOG council will review it before this board could even vote on it, and then it goes back to the BOG. So there's a lot of steps in this process.
So my role would be to lead in the process. The actual contract comes back to this board for a vote.
That's correct.
Okay.
Right, and you would be the one to be negotiating that. So, all right, thank you. We have new business, one item of new business, and that's the approval of New College of Florida, Florida's textbook and instructional materials affordability annual report for fall 2022 and spring 2023. Can I have somebody make that motion in a second, and then we'll have Mr. Brickhouse explain it?
Move to approve.
Thank you. Do I have a second?
Second.
Thank you, Trustee Bauerlein. Mr. Brickhouse, make sure that the microphone gets close. There you go.
Yes, thank you, Madam Chair. This is an annual report required by the Board of Governors. This is largely a statistical report of our performance over the last academic year, so if there's any particular questions, otherwise I would suggest that the report mainly speaks for itself, but happy to stand for any questions.
Do any trustees have any questions? Okay.
You have a motion second.
I have a motion second. Let's, do we approve the textbook instructional material affordability annual report? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? No opposed. Well, there's no further business before us today.
I have one other thing I'd like to bring as new business.
You can recognize.
So I'd like to make a motion that this board approve a statement in support of Hispanic Heritage Month. Specifically, the New College Board of Trustees joins the Florida Department of Education, Governor Ron DeSantis, and Florida First Lady Casey DeSantis, and many other Floridians from all walks of life in acknowledging the contributions of the Hispanic community to our state during Hispanic Heritage Month 2023. In particular, the board takes this moment to recognize the contribution of Hispanic members of the New College community, faculty, staff, and students to the advancement of the college over its 60-year history. Also, in the spirit of Nan Cindy Freeman, a New College student who lost her life in 1972 while supporting Hispanic farm workers in Florida, the board affirms the importance of Hispanic workers in agriculture, construction, hospitality, childcare, healthcare, and other industries central to the development of Florida and to the well-being of all Floridians. Happy Hispanic Heritage Month. Feliz mes de la Hispanidad. I would like to move that we vote to pass that.
We need a second.
I'll second that.
Okay. Any discussion?
I'll take this one up for discussion. So, while of course I think we all appreciate the contributions of the Hispanic community, like any other community, I do worry that this will set a precedent, and it's probably too small of an issue. We can perhaps delegate this to the administration, which can go through the proper process. I would just hate to set a precedent where we would be voting on every small item and lose sight of the bigger picture. Of course, I would also note that New College under Richard Corcoran's leadership has recruited more Latino and Hispanic students than I believe any time in the college's history. And so I think we should lead with our actions, the deeds that we're doing. We have great new students from a diversity of backgrounds now, even after or maybe because of abolishing the DEI department. And so I would just urge us to not get caught having to vote on every day in the calendar could be a very special day for somebody. And I think that we should perhaps delegate these decisions directly to the administration rather than voting for them as a board of trustees.
Thank you. Trustee Bauerlein?
Yes, I am not familiar with that historical case from the 70s, and so I would be uncomfortable weighing in on that.
If you like, after the meeting, Trustee Bauerlein, I'll walk you over to the mural that celebrates Ms.
No,
Freeman.
thank you.
Trustee Spalding, hey, we're running a meeting. Trustee Spalding, please.
Yeah, I had a open question, and depending on that, an amendment. My understanding is that motions under new business is inappropriate, which is why we usually instruct the president, but not a new motion. Is that correct?
That is not correct. It depends on what the subject matter of the motion is. For example, there may be matters that require conditions precedent to be met. I don't see one in this motion.
Okay. In that case, I'd like to amend the motion consistent with Trustee Rupo's comments that this matter be sent to the administration with the instruction that for them to act appropriately and give them this as a draft. I, for one, would perfectly fine with the statement, the first sentence. I'm not familiar with the other materials. I prefer to have someone else look at this more closely. I'm also concerned, as Trustee Rufo stated, that this becomes a precedent that we bring these up and just pass these over and over again. Pretty soon we're just every day of the month. I'd as soon give it to the administration, let them act appropriately. So I'm in the motion to do that.
I need a second.
If I can say, I don't believe that's a friendly amendment. So I would, with all due respect, Trustee Spalding, I don't believe that's a friendly amendment.
Is there a second to the amendment?
Trustee Reed, Columbus Day, which is very important for me, is coming up next week. I'm surprised that you weren't asking for a similar, perhaps it's an oversight. Would you also recommend that we endorse and celebrate Columbus Day on behalf of the great Italian Americans in the state of Florida and around the country?
Here, actually on campus, there will be a celebration for Indigenous Peoples Day next Monday.
We're getting off there. Okay, so, Madam Chair.
You can see where this goes. We can get bogged down in all of these details. My point is not about Columbus Day, although happy Columbus Day to all of those who celebrate it. My point is that we should not be dealing with this minutia. We have serious problems. We have a serious crisis. And frankly, I don't think it's the best use of our time to review all of the emails one by one that you have sent and not received a response to. And you may be correct in anticipating a kind of hostile response. I would recommend that you consider perhaps a bit more deeply why that might be the case.
Trusting Council Galvano.
I don't believe
Hang on,
that has
stop,
anything
stop,
to do with
stop.
this motion, sir.
Council Galvano has the floor procedurally.
There's a motion. There was an amendment that was not seconded. I think you can call the question on the underlying motion.
No, I don't think there was an opportunity to second it, so I'll do that.
Are you going to second Trustee Spalding's amended motion so that this matter be directed to the administration of New College to determine if we are going to participate in the celebration of Hispanic Month?
Can you restate the amendment? I mean, we're getting in the weeds here.
Yeah, Trustee Spalding.
I want to leave it to the discretion of the administration as to how to proceed. This is not a matter that we should be deciding.
Okay, call the question on the
So
amendment.
we're going to call the question on the amendment. So are we in favor of the amendment?
Unless there's discussion.
Unless there's any discussion. In other words, this is something that the administration should take up and then, I guess, bring back to us as a Board of Trustees.
No, I leave it to their discretion. This is an administration matter, not a Board of Trustees matter.
Got it. Yes, okay.
Call the question.
So we'll call the question. So
All in favor of the amendment?
all in favor of the amendment, say aye.
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 Okay. So the amendment,
You have to ask who's opposed. And I say no, I'm opposed to the amendment.
okay.
I'm also opposed.
Okay, so 2 opposed, everybody else in favor of the
Okay,
amendment.
so we're,
I'm just going to vote no, just because I don't understand exactly what we're doing. So I'm a no vote, but
I believe that Trustee Spalding is correct, and Trustee Rufo, in that I don't know that this is something that just comes to the Board of Trustees. I do believe that this is something that should be taken up with the administration, through the administration, and if board action is required, then the board can act on that. But until such time, I don't think it's appropriate for the board to be taking up this motion at this time.
right, but you're still back on the main question as amended, which is on this subject matter that will go to the administration to review and bring forward.
Call the question.
so I'm sorry. So we're calling the question now on the original motion?
Correct, as amended.
Trustee Reed,
As amended.
not to belabor this, but it was a long motion. Would you mind? And I had some concern a little bit with the wording, but I can't
just
memorize
closed
all the wording, so would you mind just reading it one more time before we vote?
Sorry, I'll open my computer again.
Wait, point of order. I mean, is that resolution for a vote, or is the amendment up for a vote now?
The amendment was adopted. The amendment was adopted. So this resolution is being sent to the administration for its discretion and determination about how to move forward with it.
I see. So is there a second vote needed on anything?
No, because I think we just want the administration to address the
I mean, it could be treated as a substitute amendment.
the matter
but
raised by Trustee Reed to have us recognize.
Just have a vote.
Or not. We leave it to the administration's discretion. This is not a matter we should be discussing, which the substance of Dr. Reed's statement, parts of it I agree with, parts of it I don't know enough about. So I'll leave it to the discretion of the administration. So the substance is not an issue here. We've amended it to leave it to the discretion. Now let's just approve the whole thing, which means it's no longer a board issue. This is up to the discretion of the administration.
So that's what we'd be voting on. Whether
Correct.
this gets referred to the administration.
Correct.
So on that basis, can we have a vote, please?
Just call it.
Just call it. I'm calling the vote. So all those in favor of this issue as amended by Trustee Spalding and seconded by Trustee Jaco? In favor of referring this to
Aye.
administration? Aye. Any opposed referring it to the administration? Okay, so we will refer this to the administration.
I have other new business that's quick.
Sure.
So from my understanding, this board was named in a lawsuit, and so I was going to ask, well, we'll be having, I understand we can have private meetings with our legal counsel. Will we be having those?
Yes, and I actually brought that up with Chair Jenks today, that we're probably due for a shade meeting to bring everybody up to speed on some of the pending litigation.
Thank you. And then I had a second question. I think it was mentioned earlier on, but there was a letter about our business plan that was sent to the Board of Governors. Can that be distributed? Because I think that's quite important. They had a lot of criticisms about our plan, and we should see that.
That's the Bog's taking that up tomorrow, and I don't see Trustee Levine here, but I think that what they're taking up is not to specifically review what was said, but the idea of referring to anonymous review. So I guess it's part of the Bog package now. It's a public record.
Okay. Well, thank you.
Chair
Okay.
Jenks, if I could just
Yes.
make one comment. I was just going to ask all of my trustees, at the last meeting, there was a motion that was required thought and contemplation that was made in new business, and at this meeting there was one that was made. And I was just going to ask my fellow trustees, as a courtesy to each of us, if we have things that we'd like to raise, let's try to get them on the agenda and submit any materials around so we can all digest it. It's an uncomfortable position, I think, for us all to have to take up substantive issues in new business unless they're emergent. And so I don't mean to, definitely not speaking down to anyone, because I respect everyone here and I know we're all trying to do our best. But if we can all just keep that in mind and not do that to each other unless it's absolutely necessary, I think we'd all appreciate it.
Yes. Okay. Well, we've actually completed our meeting in the under scheduled 2 hours, I think. 2 to 4. With that, thank you, everybody. Thank you, everybody on the Zoom. Thank you, people in the audience. And we are adjourned.